Welcome back, guys. This lecture should be fairly short because we only have about 2 slides to go to. But we're going to be talking about the second reaction of photosynthesis. This is the second of 2, so this will be the last reaction that we talk about for photosynthesis. And the reaction is often called the Kelvin cycle, or some people call it the dark reactions of photosynthesis. And we'll talk about why it's called dark reactions in a few minutes. But the Kelvin cycle was named after the individual who discovered the Kelvin cycle, and his name was Melvin Kelvin. You can tell that his parents really loved him as a child. The Kelvin cycle is a simple cycle that takes carbon from carbon dioxide and adds it to this molecule called RUBP. RUBP is a 5-carbon molecule. All right, so keep that in mind. It has 5 carbons in it. And you take the 1 carbon from CO2 to create a 6-carbon molecule. And when you do that, you form glucose, which, if you guys remember, is C6H12O6. So the RUBP molecule that is starting the Kelvin cycle adds the carbon from your CO2 to create the 6 carbons that you see in your glucose. And this reaction occurs in the stroma of chloroplast, which is the space or the cytoplasm-like material that is in between your granum or your thylakoids. So the thylakoid membrane is really not involved in the Kelvin cycle. And it is a cycle, which we talked about earlier this year, but it is a cycle because the last molecule formed in the series is also the first molecule to start over. So therefore, the last molecule in the cycle is RUBP, which is the same molecule that started the cycle. So RUBP goes through the cycle, creates glucose, and then gets recycled. So this is a picture of the myth, the man, the legend, Melvin Kelvin. And if it wasn't for Melvin Kelvin, we would not understand the dark reactions of photosynthesis. So the next slide will talk about how the actual process in which this works and what is required in order for the dark reactions to occur. So this is how it works. Your dark reactions, and if you want a written explanation, I believe your book has a good description of this. And your Kelvin cycle is shown here. So to start the Kelvin cycle, the RUBP molecule that we discussed here, again, this is a 5-carbon molecule, is what starts the reaction. And your carbon dioxide, which is taken up through the stomata of leaves, and there are 6 of them. So if you notice, there's 6 RUBP molecules, each having 5 carbons, and there are 6 carbon dioxide molecules. So each carbon dioxide adds its carbon to your RUBP, and another contributor is your H2O. So you've got 6 water molecules that come in. And what ends up happening is, through a series of chemical reactions, which we're not going to get into, your RUBP molecule gets split up into 12 PGA molecules, which are 3 carbons apiece. So you have 36 carbons at the beginning of the cycle, and you still have 36 carbons here. However, you break the molecule down into smaller pieces. At this point, the ATP created during the light reactions and the NADPH created during the light reactions are used to provide energy to convert your PGA into this molecule called G3P. And your 12 3GP molecules will take 2 of them in order to synthesize the organic molecule glucose. So this is your glucose, H12O6 was created from your 12 G3P molecules. The remaining 10 G3P molecules, so now that you have gotten rid of 2 of them, you have 10 left, take ATP again from the light reactions and undergo a series of chemical reactions that convert your 10 G3P molecules back into RUBP, and now you're at the beginning of the cycle. So again, this is a cycle because you start with the first step in the cycle is having a RUBP molecule, and then by the end of the cycle you regain your RUBP molecule so that it can then take carbon dioxide again and do the process over again. And this is never ending. All right. Now the reason why these are called the dark reactions is not because they happen at night. That is not the reason they're called dark reactions. The reason that they are called dark reactions is simply because they do not require light. Like the light reactions, There's no chlorophyll in this particular cycle, and therefore light is not required. So therefore the dark reactions can happen either at night or during the day. So they happen at any time of the day. It doesn't matter if there's light involved or not. So just like we did before, let's talk about the materials used. All right, you've got CO2, and H2O. Those molecules create glucose, C6H12O6, and your ATP is used for energy, which then gets converted into ADP, which, if you think about it, now that you have regained ADP, this can go back into the light reactions, which we talked about yesterday, and be converted back into ATP, so that's a never-ending cycle. And then lastly, you used NADPH and converted that into NADP. So that is the general sequence. You take carbon dioxide and water to create your glucose molecule through a series of reactions in which the energy for the reaction is provided by your ATP and your NADPH. So those are the dark reactions. We'll be discussing this tomorrow. If you have any questions, make sure you jot them down now. I know this is kind of a complicated process, but we just kind of summarized it, and you don't need to know the intricacies of the Kelvin cycle. You simply need to know the materials used and what is created. So this is just for your information's sake over here. This is the material that I really would like you to know, the CO2, H2O, ATP, and NADPH.